Alright guys, in this video I'm doing my first impressions on the HoverAir Pro Max 8K drone tracking me on a bike. The good, the bad, and lots of crashes. So this is not going to be a full review on this drone or going over all the spec. I'm actually testing this out and doing a first impressions, my first ever tracking on this drone. And the original, the HoverAir X1, this actually did really good in this situation. But with this drone now being bigger, heavier, a better battery, and 8K resolution from this camera, I sure have high hopes and was really looking forward to testing this out. So I'm going to show you a couple of different locations and scenarios where I was actually using this, just using the tracking modes. I wasn't using any of the different like quick shot modes. It was simply just follow mode, side track, and dolly track. But I have really big expectations of this drone because of its price. So this drone starts at around about $699, upwards over $1,000 for this. So you can get a lot of other drones in that price category. So for that reason, I'm not going to be kind on this. If it was like a $100, $200, $300 drone, I could forgive it and be like, yeah, it could get better, but what do you expect? It's a $200 drone, just like the DJI Neo. But this being like $700, this better be good. And I'm also just using this in just its simplest terms. I'm not using any of the remote controllers, the beacon. It's literally just this drone that you would rock up to any location and you want this drone to follow you. So in the first example on this trail here, I want to actually just get it to track me from quite close by. And I'm going to go relatively slow just to see how it does. So you don't have to drag a box around you, you simply just press that button, you look for a red dot on the actual drone on the front, and then it will start to follow you. So as I set off down this path, it follows me and it even keeps up with me over this bridge. I was quite nervous about it crashing, but it does a good job at avoiding it on its first like 10 seconds in the air. And the drone actually keeps up with me and avoids all these trees and branches on this trail. I was really impressed with how it kept up and how stable it was, keeping me centered all the time. Now I will talk about the camera towards the end of the video, but it did keep a really consistent speed, and for the first run I was really impressed. So on the second run I wanted to go into the settings and change it now from close to actually medium. So I selected that and just see how that drone does. So as you can see now, I set off and it's following me just like before, really good. And now it is slightly further back. So you can see as it's changing elevation, it has no problem. I also increased this speed on this flat area here to about 20 miles an hour. And overall, again, really good. You can even see at the end of this trail here, I had to duck myself under these twigs and the drone follows me and ducks under them without any problem. Really good first impressions. Now I also wanted to see is if the drone would track you from the front in follow mode. So I actually put the drone in front of me, I took off, and as you can see, well, no, it literally would just crash into my head unless I stopped. So for tracking you from the front, you need to activate dolly track. Now I did have some really good first impressions of the build quality of this drone, the portability, and those first examples there, it actually did really good. But this is where I started to get a few issues with this drone. This video is sponsored by Motion VFX and I'm using their plugins, titles and effects literally daily. Rather than actually creating all of these different effects on the screen now myself, I can just use one of their plugins for lower thirds, titles, pop-ups and effects. And some of my favourite plugins, the M-Channel Cyber, this gives like this futuristic look so you can have on-screen effects like this. I'm always using that one. And then the iAdjusting plugin, this gives this really nice like Apple clean look. I'm always using that on literally like every single video. And they've got loads of different plugins to choose from for your video editor and they literally get added to weekly. And for Black Friday they've also got their Blacks Week where you can get 30% off Design and Cine Studio, and if you combine them you can get the new M-Type Doodle collection all for free. And you can sign up for a 14-day free trial using my link, which is going to be at the top of the description. I highly recommend it, a website I'm using all the time. Go and check it out. Now on this third example, I want to actually just go full hog down this path and see just how well this drone did. And the drone actually did surprisingly well. Again, keeping up with me, avoiding twigs and trees, it did a great job. But I've got no footage to show you, and I'll show you why. It's because right near the end, that drone did crash. Hello. Did you survive? Oh, the battery's come out. Battery's come out. Camera seems all right, but I wonder when it has an impact like this, does it save that last file? It should do, because don't forget this has got internal storage So the drone crashed into that twig there. It was actually completely fine. The drone's got no real damage to it. It has got a bit of a mark on the battery, but this could be one of the other crashes coming up. But the problem is that the drone battery actually flipped out when it impacted. And you can see it actually just slides in and comes out really easily. There's nothing actually securing it in place. And because of that, everything was actually being recorded to the internal storage on this drone. You can put an SD card in here, but I was recording to the storage directly on the drone itself, just for that, again, that ease of use. But as that battery's flipped out, it's not saved any of that footage. And that's really frustrating. Even with an impact, if that battery was to fly out, you would like to think that that saved file would be somewhere on the internal storage. And on here, you actually have the ability to track you from behind, from the front, and it also has side track as well. So again, on this top menu, you can actually go across,
zoom out, hover, sidetrack.
And you can actually select sidetrack. So to start with, I actually just had it from quite close to my right hand side. As I set off here, it does an alright job. It was fairly windy now. You can see that background, the landscape, that's all good. But it's literally like just having some selfie stick out in front of me. It's not further enough away. So I actually went in and actually selected far. Now that is a good thing about this. You can go onto the menu here now. Rather than just having one power button, there's also an outer button as well. And from here you can actually select close, far, or actually medium. So I selected far, but as soon as I did that, the drone literally just like took off and it just like had a bit of a fit, flew off, landed on the floor. Not great. So I tested sidetrack again. I put it now to medium. Now you need to be careful because it doesn't have any side sensors on the drone at all. So it was tracking me from sideways. It was okay. The actual distance was a little bit further back, but it just doesn't see any of these obstacles. So it does fly really like fast and erratic, and eventually the inevitable happened. I don't have much hope for you now, because now you have trees and twigs. Yeah, there we go. And another one. How many crashes is that now? What, 3? 3 crashes. But look, it's absolutely fine. So in this example now, I'm actually going to get the drone to track me from the front. So I selected dolly track and I selected it to medium. Just have the drone out in front of me, hit the button, it takes off. I can see the little red icon on the front of it. And I just now go pretty slow and the drone starts to then fly backwards. Again, keeping me composed and framed. It's doing a really good job. Only when I started to increase that speed again up to its top speed limit, so 20-25 miles per hour, and this is when the drone then starts to fly a little bit more erratic and then eventually coming really close to hitting into this wall, and then it has a bit of a fit, tries to compose itself, and then wants to default to actually tracking me where it feels safe, which is tracking you from behind. But overall, yeah, it can track you from the front, and up to higher speeds, it did a great job. But if you're just wanting a drone for like tracking you when you're walking, running, this is going to be more than good enough. It's just when you're going high speeds on like a bike like this. Now the top speed on here, they say it can actually track you up to 26 miles per hour. And I would say that is pretty accurate. I had this drone tracking me at slow speeds, no problem whatsoever, up to 15-20 miles an hour. Again, still pretty close to me. Now, as I increase that speed to 25-30 miles an hour, the drone is still capable at keeping up with me, as you can see in these shots here. But as I actually do increase that speed, the drone isn't as close to me. It is quite far back. It is struggling a little bit, but overall it does a great job. Really impressive that it can track you at faster speeds. So I'd say first impressions, it's not bad, but it's certainly not great either. Just like I said at the start of the video, because of the price point of this, I'm not going to be like, yay, everything's great about this. I'm going to give constructive criticism. Hopefully then we will then see different firmware pumped out to this. I'm sure we will anyway. It's a new drone, it's an expensive drone, and all of these improvements could be made, a lot of them with firmware. So the camera on here, 8K 30. Now saying numbers like that, you're automatically going to actually get a lot of attention from people going, oh my God, it's an 8K drone. But actually let me know in the comments down below, what do you think about the camera quality coming from here? Now I've not touched this in any way. It's literally straight out of camera. Now I was using 8K 30 for all the different tracking modes, and about a 90-second clip is going to get 2 gig of memory used. So it will use memory up pretty quick. So make sure you have a decent sized memory card in this drone. And whilst I like the camera quality, it is a huge improvement over the HoverAir X1. I do think it still needs some improvements. You can see the highlights are often blown out. In a lot of these clips here, the shadows are handled well, but just look at the skies. It's just like a wash of like white. I don't think the highlights particularly look very good, and I'm sure that could be tweaked and improved. And strangely, unlike DJI's color profile, which I would say is too saturated in normal, on on this, in the normal color profile, it is quite undersaturated. Now you might like this. I actually think it looks quite pale and a bit flat, and in that situation I would probably increase that saturation. But what I really do find frustrating, and this has to improve, is that on the drone you have the HoverAir X1 app. This is the same app we had on the original drone, so you can activate it, you can see the album, you can actually go through and change all your settings. The actual app, it's fine, it's good, it's really like basic, but it's easy to use. But what I don't like is that when the drone is actually following you, you can't actually see any live preview of what is actually going on. Now, before you actually go offline, you can actually see a live preview out of that camera, but as soon as you actually switch to one of the follow modes, that goes off and it's now just like this white screen, which means then you can't see if you're like composed, you can't even see if that drone is still following you. You're constantly like looking back and actually trying to listen out, has that drone crashed? But you have to 100% have some sort of live preview when that drone is following you. Now, I might be completely wrong here, but I have gone into all the settings and I can't see any way of actually activating that. And don't forget, this drone can only track you. You can't actually track vehicles on here, so you can't track your car. It's literally just tracking you. So it actually focuses on you, right? You're on a bike. It's not tracking the bike, it's tracking you. So that again could be quite limited. I'd love to see some other options where you can actually drag a box on the screen if we do get kind of like some screen support, and actually track different things like you can do on other drones. So I mean, I love the portability, I love the ease of use of this, how easy it is to fold up, and the camera, yeah, the camera is better, the ND filter support, all the accessories are great. But I literally wanted to make this for first impressions because I had such like high hopes of this drone, because I love using tracking on any of the drones, and I think whilst it's good, it can get so much better. So overall, I would say like 6 out of 10, and hoping that this can get much better with firmware, which I'm sure it can. You know, I was really impressed with like the portability and the build quality of it, how robust it was when it did have some crashes, how it was able to like keep up with me at high speeds and like avoiding twigs and trees on that narrow path. It is great, it has a lot of potential. But let's not forget the price point of this. You're literally competing with like the Mini 4 Pro. You know, this has to have continuous improvement and it has to get better. Now, I will be doing a follow-up video going through all the different features on here as well, because it's a lot more than just tracking. You can use other things on here. So I will be doing that soon. But first impressions for a tracking video, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, it really does help me out, and subscribe because I've got loads of content coming really soon. But let me know in the comments down below, what do you think about this drone? I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts. See you in the next one.